One of the best ways that we can put pre-visualization to use is when we are scouting a new location that we have never worked at before. Alright, before we continue talking about the ways that I use scouting to prepare for a photo shoot, I'm going to take a second to talk to you about Skillshare, which is the sponsor of today's video. Skillshare is an online learning community for creatives, which millions of people use to take their skills to the next level. Skillshare offers thousands of classes for curious people on topics including photography, videography, design, illustration, freelancing, and more. Right now, I'm working on the course Digital Poster Design, Combining Images and Type for Powerful Visuals by Temi Coker. I'm working on this class because I'm trying to improve at creating images that are well optimized for copy, which is my primary objective as an editorial photographer at the university. Skillshare is an extremely affordable way to grow as a creative professional, with their annual premium membership costing less than $10 a month. So, whether you're looking to improve at a specific skill or you're a curious person who wants to learn something new, if you're interested in joining and becoming a member of Skillshare, you can click the top link in the description below to get a free 2-month premium trial. I recently got the chance to photograph the wedding of my good friend Mark, and Mark and I have both been wedding photographers for years and shooting together for years. Here's a picture of us outside testing the light for a night portrait at a wedding. Now, Mark had his wedding down at the Ritz Carlton in Naples, Florida, somewhere I had never worked before, so I thought I'd talk about what I did the day before to use scouting to make sure I was better prepared for his wedding day. The very first thing I look for when scouting is the lighting conditions, and as long as it's possible, I try to scout at the same time of day that I'm going to be shooting at. That way the sun is in a similar position to when I'm going to be working in it. Now, this is weather dependent and time of year dependent, so ideally you want to be scouting as close to your shooting date as possible. That way you know the conditions are going to be the same. First thing I want to know is, where's my shade going to be? Where are some places that just don't have any harsh sunlight coming in? That way I know there's a safe space to go that I can execute a lot of natural light portraits very quickly. I also want the chance to spot some really interesting light formations, right? Some really hard lighting conditions or strong lighting changes. That way I can use those for more dynamic flash lit photos. I'm also looking for areas where if my subject was standing in there for a photo, they would be facing the sunlight.
Yeah, high winds, hard lights, your favorite conditions, you know? Everything you love. Absolute blast.
Thanks for traveling.
Hell yeah.
Because I'm probably going to avoid those areas just to make sure that my clients stay comfortable. This just isn't a flattering look for photos. I also use a sun tracker app on my phone. A lot of them have it where the feature just goes directly over your camera and you can see the sun's position, and that helps me determine how a specific location is going to change throughout the day. In this instance, this helped me a lot because I knew right where the sun was going to be at sunset, so I knew right where we had to head to at the beach in order to get a great image. Now, most people might scout for locations first. They might be paying attention to the scenery first, but I always try to analyze the lighting first because the lighting is going to guide which locations are best at which point during the day. There was this beautiful courtyard that was available to us at any point in the day, but if we go back to rule 1, it was in sunlight all day to the point where if we were trying to shoot back towards the hotel, then the clients would be facing the direct sun. However, it was perfectly usable after the sun went down and we ended up using it for some nighttime portraits. Now, as I walk around and scout a location, I'm still paying attention to locations, and there's a lot of specific things that I'm looking for. I look for big expansive views or symmetry that I would use for wide angle portraits. I look for textures or repetitive patterns that I can use as compositional elements in more telephoto portraits. I always look for negative space above the eye level because I'm thinking I want clear spaces behind my subjects. That way I know my subjects will pop off of them. And I'm looking for natural frames in the environment that I can use to add dimension to a photo. Now, as I move through these spots, I try to consider what's going to work for certain categories, but I'm not planning specific shots, planning specific poses, or choosing my focal length in advance. I'm looking for a soft framework to keep the day moving fluidly while still leaving room for spontaneous creativity. Next, this may not be an issue if you're photographing at some countryside barn, but another thing I'm constantly looking at is how much foot traffic is taking place. And this may be limited to weddings where time is precious, but I will take an average location that is completely empty over an amazing location that has a ton of foot traffic moving through it. The Ritz Carlton has a beautiful entranceway. It features some big archways, there's a nice fountain there, it's awesome symmetry, there's a lot to love about it. However, because the Ritz Carlton is valet only, there's a constant stream of people pulling up cars, valet attendants running, people exiting the hotel. All of this makes it really difficult to get a clean shot in, and I'd much rather use areas that have less foot traffic while I have my couple's time. So for this reason, I opted to avoid the front entrance except for a quick stop at the fountain, which was far easier to keep people out of the background. So foot traffic and lighting issues are common problems that may influence where you spend your time shooting, but when I'm scouting, the other thing I'm looking for is any problems that I can solve in advance of when I have to work. Both the couple and myself agreed that the back courtyard of the Ritz Carlton Hotel would make an excellent place to do family portraits simply because we knew everyone would congregate there for cocktail hour. And the hardest part about doing family formals is just making sure everyone is where they should be. Now, as I said earlier, most of that courtyard was getting slammed with sunlight, and it would be all day while the sun was out, except there was this one little stairway with an archway behind it that was absolutely perfect and in complete shade. I always look for stairs when I'm doing family formals, that way I have levels to pose people, and the neutral background behind them just made sure that there were no distracting elements. And while this spot that we found fit perfectly, there were unfortunately a stack of portable heaters left there for the events that take place at night. Now, if I came across the spot day of, I would simply have to move on and find a different spot. However, because I was there scouting in advance, I was able to contact the planner, shout out to Taylor, and she was able to organize them being moved. That way, when it came time for family portraits the next day, I had my number one pick. So once I'm aware of the lighting conditions, I have a mental list of spots I want to hit, I know the foot traffic to avoid, and I've gotten all the problems and challenges out of my way, I shift my focus to efficiency. Now, I don't draw on a map or anything, but I do create a little mental pathway of how I'm going to move through the spots that I've selected. I don't want to be going back and forth, deciding if we should go back to a spot that we were already at, or start at spot A, go all the way to B, and then come back to right by A. You don't want to be doing any of that. With this type of plan in advance, you've really carved out a efficient mental pathway for yourself, and you have more mental freedom to communicate with your clients or find deeper levels of creativity and ultimately deliver killer images to your client. I really hope this video on what I look for when scouting helps you guys out. If it did, leave a like, subscribe if you want to see more of my videos, and until next time, keep on shooting.